Hello, Merry Christmas. It's Christmas Eve actually, but I'm recording this to be put up tomorrow for Christmas. Merry Christmas, everybody. This is Tony Smario coming to you from BroSal.org, my father's YouTube channel. And I just thought for this Christmas day we catch up on the march toward World War III this week. And as I'm been saying now for some time, that it strikes me, we have some time to go to get to these end times that people first started tuning into my dad 20 years ago to learn about, when Dad was just writing and developed an amazing archive of his thoughts all put down in writing before it became eventually an internet radio show for a while, until the crash of '08 bankrupted many of the people who were supporting his ministry. But this ministry's always been about revealing the end time scenario to people, because even through all the years in which we were learning it and the misunderstandings we've since seen in our own viewpoint of it, we've always been ahead of the curve, if you will. We've always had an insight that the traditional world has not presented, and now it's clear to me why, as I've delved into the real reasons behind the way the world operates. The power in the world, whether it be material or diabolical, operates in a certain darkness, a spiritual type of darkness is the way I relate it. And so it seeks to turn white into black. It seeks to turn wrong into right, simply as like a magnetic pull. And that explains our world never being one of this Garden of Eden. You know, that I'm happy to take it as a legend. I don't mind believing in a God who is able to express the unexpressible through these legends to my own consciousness that lives in a world bound by time and space. So that if that's the way I have to see the unseeable and think the unthinkable, that makes sense to me. But it doesn't mean my God has to have wings and flaming swords have to block people from an actual garden. I mean, that might be true on a certain level. I don't doubt that either, that image comes from somewhere. But the idea of a serpent offering the piece of fruit to Eve, that whole story, which comes down slightly different to Islam, it was Adam that got the fruit. So who knows which is the true story? Did they change it, or did the Catholics change it? Man, I've learned enough about history to know I'm not going to judge my God based on which one of these stories was copied down. And this is where I think Christianity has, been so manipulated and off track, and why all of their insights are terribly manipulated and should be sought. You should seek to undermine what you've been taught through traditional Christianity with true understanding, what you might say that Holy Spirit type of insight, in spirit and in truth, is the way we're supposed to worship God. So that means cutting through the psychological barriers, doesn't it, that are put up through our culture, through our time, through our misunderstanding. There's a spirit, like the spirit of the law. The law tells you not to cross the street against traffic. But boy, to save a little kid or a little dog, or, there's always a reason in which crossing that street is much more important than the law itself. And so the spirit of the law is what needs to be encompassed in a human being, not just the letter of the law. The letter only came along to demonstrate, as Paul points out, the spirit of the law that had always existed. So I don't want to, this isn't about Christianity today. I want to catch people up a little bit on what I think is very important developments in our, what I still believe is a great transition as Donald Trump comes to presidency. I believe we're just like 9/11. This is the next big turn. It's like they had to do a U-turn. They had to get the world who saw things one way to completely see them a different way and be ready to go a different way. Meaning, anyone that was still open-minded enough to understand that religion's about love, terrorism is not religious, whether it's Christian, Muslim, or Jew, the oppressors in, this Zionism, the oppressors in Christianity that are completely militaristic and material in their nature, the oppressors in Islam that have been, whoever rose them up, if they're claiming that they follow Allah and Muhammad and they want to kill people in that name, well, they're as wrong as the Christians or the Jews. That's not God. That's not religion. That's not the religious experience. And the fact that that's not just a mainstream narrative so that religion can stand pure against it, to me has to be seen. This is the bigger picture that I need to preface almost everything nowadays with, because I believe that what I have to offer is a couple of insights that are unique to my own perspective as it's developed. The most important of which to me is the Christian perspective, that I'm the only Christian I know that thinks Christianity is really a mess and a mix-up, that it's been manipulated for so long that, like the U.S. government, it does not actually operate in the capacity in which it was originated. We don't walk the walk. We talk the talk, but we don't walk the walk. And we know that in our government. It's quite clear that the idea even of any kind of a democratic republic on any terms has been undermined by a sort of a kleptocratic, aristocratic banking cartel that was already being identified in Carroll Quigley's time in 1966. So think of how long that's been around. And that's why one of the main things, other than the fact that I'm a Christian pointing to Christianity as being just as corrupted and backwards as the American, government, that all they do is talk about this Jesus, the Messiah that died for everybody, but they don't follow him. And so you get this lukewarm expression of the church that says Jesus, Jesus, but lives according to the world and mammon. They worship mammon while claiming to worship Jesus. That's the thing. They believe in Jesus, but worship mammon. That's Christianity in my view. And they've completely been manipulated by the same mammon worshipers that run the world, that may perhaps be completely materialistic, if not, Luciferian. I don't want to have to draw that distinction for people to listen to me. It doesn't matter. I don't think they're reptiles like David Icke thinks, but what do I know of the other realm of spirit world? I just don't see how a reptile is a natural evolutionary thing the way we picture our, this process of selection in this natural world. A reptile, something that developed out of the same amoeba we all developed according to the selection of the environment, right? So what makes a reptile evil? I don't get it, but this whole idea of the snake in the garden, right? So is there, they claim it's some lower form of development, right? A lower consciousness, people that are still on this, this reptilian consciousness. So I don't know. I don't buy that myself. But how do I know? So I'm not taking it off the table. Go ahead, let the reptilians put that on the table. I'm happy to discuss it. I see that the people that run the world are either materialists who believe that their blood is better, that their natural selection, they're strong because they choose to be strong. They're Nietzscheites. Or else they're of that, occultish nature that we accuse of being Luciferian. I'm still not sure that all that's not part of the deception, but if there's a spiritual world and if there's a Satan and a Lucifer and all this, well then why not? Why wouldn't that be where the deception's coming from? And that materialism is but part of the great deception to pull the wool over the eyes of many of the world's powerful people and get them to do what they're told because they think life is only for them to gain as much toys as they can. So, the insights I have to offer have to do with seeing the world in a different way that relates to an eschatological view, but not the one everyone's familiar with. I'm trying to point out that the stories we get from everybody, and especially the Christians, and especially the Christian eschatologists like Jonathan Cahn and such, are completely misguided, if not purposely manipulated to be misinformation. And so the world we live in is one of absolute deception on every realm. We don't even know that, Tesla offered them free energy. And from what we can gather, they stole the technology and gave us nuclear energy instead and didn't tell us about the way this free energy works, this electromagnetic energy. And so that's one great deception that seems very important. But with regard to where we're at in World War III, this vote by the UN against Jerusalem, that's very important, of course. Obama not vetoing it as all the presidents do. This thing I saw with Bibi, Netanyahu, talking about what a great tradition in supporting Israel against the non-Israel sediment. But wait a minute, this non-Israel sediment's coming from the whole world, right? Isn't that what we're saying? The United Nations, and these aren't even the people we don't like, right? These aren't the communists and the people that are, we don't let the Muslims in there because they're radicals that slaughter their people. We would never do anything like that. So the United Nations are all the good nations that obey we say, right? The sort of parameters, democratic elections, such things, that we support as Americans that have all the weapons and all the power in the world. And so for us to veto that and imagine that, we don't have to explain ourselves. Just this blind support for Israel in the face of the whole world, saying this is a blatant, the resolutions of no unequivocal terms, a blatant disregard of international law. That's what the whole world is saying. But Israel and the United States say no. So because Obama did this, of course, everybody's going to praise Obama. Come on, you guys. He's a setup too. He's left wing, right wing, red team, blue team. So he's setting up for what's coming. That's what I'm trying to get people to see on the inside. I want you to gather from what I'm trying to show you. Stop believing what they show you on the news, even the mainstream media. You got to judge it very carefully. You really do. Because the whole idea is that there's something going on that they're not telling you about. That's the real deal. They want an electronic money system, so they're using it, they're testing it, they're putting it into the works, and they're telling people already how good it is, how convenient it is. I say they're going to turn to it after they wipe most of the people off the planet, because that's so much easier. So they're not saying that right now. They're not scaring you about the money system. What they're scaring you about is people like Alex Jones are going to put you in labor camps, and they're going to kill everybody through, labor camps and Big Brother type of thing. And I say, no, they're not. That's very expensive. That's not what they're going to do, because we know from prophecy, even outside of Christian prophecy, everybody's prophecy sees volcanoes and earthquakes and polar shifts and, cosmic stuff happening, that this earth, it wipes out almost everybody. And that's what Christian scripture says as well. So I wanted to point to this UN vote as something that you shouldn't be seeing as Obama standing for something and Trump standing for something else. We're being set up. And so you're being set up by extreme leftism so that extreme rightism can come next. So that's the first thing on this UN vote. That's a very important factor right now with getting back to rebuilding the temple, which is, as I'm always pointing out, there's only three things going on. A move toward an international currency that controls everyone, since that's what the people have used. Remember what Rothschild said. Give me control of a nation's currency, and I don't care which puppet sits on the throne. Okay? So that's been going on already for a couple hundred years. What did he tell them 200 years ago in America? Either you'll grant the charter, or you'll find yourself in a disastrous war, which they then did. What did he tell them 100 years ago. What did he tell England? This is Rothschilds, the bankers. Don't worry, America will come in on your side. I want Palestine. Okay, you can have Palestine. All right, America, get into the First World War. Nobody wanted that war. People didn't want that war. What the hell are we doing fighting over there in Europe for some king that got killed in Hungary, some Austrian empire? So, you know, when you look at history, come on, you guys, who's pulling the strings? The bankers. What do they want eventually? Complete control. How do you get that? Electronic currency. No hiding that. No stealing that. So everybody's under perfect control once you get there. And so I say that the preliminary to that is population control, which is why that's been on their radar ever since, you know, for 100 years. Too many people, too many people, too many people, too many people. And yet they've been killing people for the last 100 years genocidally in every corner of the world. Starving them in Africa, murdering them all over the world through wars and all sorts of catastrophes. I mean, Christmas, how many years ago? 250,000 die in a tsunami. Even if that was a natural disaster, there's 250,000 overnight. How long does it take to replace 250,000 people? So when you look at the wars and everything that's been going on all this time, it's really... sorry, I got some dogs protecting the territory here. When you look at the wars, you know, that have been going on all along, and in the modern day, the program to actually, you know, contraceptives, Planned Parenthood, sterilization programs that are out in the open, not to mention whatever we're doing that we call humanitarian. So look at what they're doing in Africa right now with this rice, plastic rice. So that's another story for another day. But right now we got this UN vote in Jerusalem that's very big toward our move toward World War III, which, remember, comes about because of our third thing. You got the money system going to electronic. First, they want to get rid of a lot of people on the planet. Then they're going to rule the world from Jerusalem through their new temple. That's the way it's got to come down. And so when you look toward that, that's what they're setting up right now. They're setting these things up. You've got this assassination of the Russian ambassador. Now, was that real or not? I'm not sure. I haven't seen enough stuff. It looks like they may have actually, you know, shot somebody. But that was certainly set up by more than this lone gunman. That's for sure. And you can tell by the news that comes out about it what it's meant to do. It's meant to be in the news. It's meant to be a big story. Otherwise, it would have happened in private, and no one would have ever known about it. Someone might have run a little story. Russian ambassador was killed in his home. Somebody shot him in the back on the way to work. And that would have been that. Why is it the biggest story? Well, because they made it like a television event. And the only thing I've seen so far that's pretty obvious is the cameraman that gets the still shot of him. And the camera doesn't move after the guy gets shot through the chest, if that really even happened. But either way, the gun noise, you can tell by the reaction of other camera footage that they've shown, you know, the natural reaction is to jump away from something like that. But this particular cameraman stands right in there like they know they're not going to get shot. So it reeks of just a false flag, whether they killed the man or not. And that's pretty much impossible nowadays to know in the world I live in, where they've been doing all that all these years. They fake going to the moon. Right? They fake killing people all the time. The Nice truck attack, the Sandy Hook hoax, the Boston bombing, the Paris attack. These are all false flags. The Orlando massacre, as we still refer to it in the mainstream media, all hoaxes and false flags. And most of them, no blood at all. Nobody died. Just a put on. So this is the world we live in. Now, I want to bring us, for the moment today, in this relation to World War III, to reflect on the eschatological view for a moment, presented in just a couple of visions out of Revelation. The fact that, first out of Daniel, and then out of Revelation. The fact that Daniel sees this horn that we've all, you know, through eschatology identified to be this final Antichrist, as Nostradamus sees him, whatever, this final expression that brings about this end. that I say is not yet, that we're seeing the setup. We're seeing the psychological dividing of people into the correct orientations that they can then set off on each other when the time comes. Korea's against each other, Pakistan and India against each other, Zionism against Muslim. Look at in America, the Christians against the atheists. All this has been going on since long before I was born, right? Scopes monkey trial and such. And yet today it's got to be such a big deal that people have to take a side. And I think that's what's really going on. And I'll bet it's going to go on for several more years. And we know it's going to go on for at least 3.5 into a 7-year covenant that they haven't even made. And I don't see how they can make it while ISIS is, we got to see the end of ISIS and all that. So let's just go back to Daniel recounting that this little horn character that's going to rise, that's going to result in 3 other kingdoms or rulers being plucked up by their roots. And so we can see Iraq, we can see Libya. I start to wonder if Egypt's part of that, even though Egypt wasn't part of that original kingdom, that Roman Empire. He certainly was plucked up by the roots, but whether we've always thought Assad fit that role. And it's still, we have to watch and see. How are they playing this with Syria? Assad's been left in there when a couple of years ago, even a year ago, didn't America say he's got to go? I mean, weren't we absolutely insistent? I mean, America, do we just say that for no reason? You mean he had to go a year ago, but now, I mean, I don't know. I think all of this, we have to see what their play is. You just got to know it's a play. That's the important part. Don't think we're reacting to Russia's moves. It's a play. And Assad's playing his part. Is he going to go at some point? Well, the Zionism, the plan for the greater Israel, you would say yes, because all that from the Euphrates to the Nile is theirs. And Syria being that French mandate and then being developed by Russian money, you'd think would have to then fall under this new regime. But if they're all, as I'm saying, they're all being paid by the same bankers, Russia, China, all that was started by the same bankers controlling the world and setting up, if Pike is right, for this Third World War, setting up a red team, blue team paradigm. Communists, the Reds, the red commies was the first scare. Now it's the terrorists against the Zionists, right? And then it's also the religious nuts that won't give up on their silly superstition against the realists and the Enlightenment thinkers. So all of this seems to be coming to a head on purpose. Now in Daniel, you have this horn, this one horn that results in the 3 being uprooted, has eyes like eyes of a man. In other words, this horn is not something supernatural. He's got eyes like a man. This horn has eyes like a man. And a mouth speaking great things. See, that's why I say, if you're really watching in the world, this is the thing I'm watching for. When is this man, this king, this horn, this little horn, going to come on the scene speaking great things, And we've been anticipating for, my father's been teaching for 20, almost 30 years that this has got to be the Hashemite king of Jordan. It's the only one that fits the bill, and I don't have time to go through that. You'll have to study all of our stuff. But in our view, the Hashemite king of Jordan is the one that's been set up to be this little horn that's rising up. What are the great things I'm expecting him, or wondering, thinking he's going to say? That it's coming to a point now where everything's getting hostile. ISIS, they're about to kill him. And what's going to be left? Russia and Iran against the United States, right? Isn't that what they've been setting up now? Russia's been helping Assad, Iran's helping Assad, and all of a sudden you got Russia and Iran have helped Assad, but now America's wants him to go, and you've got this real clash of powers suddenly with, sort of a no man's land. Where do we go with this? How do we all get what we need out of this? And so I say that what it first does is they keep hyping it into World War III, World War III, World War III. But that's not what's going to happen. And Trump's going to be there to help alleviate that because of his sentiments with Russia. They're going to find a way around it right now, because what we in the eschatological framework are expecting is they need to build another pyramid. And Paul says it's when they say peace and safety that's sudden destruction. Right now they're not saying peace and safety. They're saying terrorism, 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 fear, fear, fear. And that's why I know that's all a stage show, because they're going to say peace and safety, so they're setting it up. You know, if you know about the art of propaganda, you know, sort of brought into the modern world by Edward Bernays 100 years ago, then you know that that's how you do it. It's a psychological thing. You don't appeal to people's sense of left brain analytical thinking. You appeal to people's emotions. That's how you move them beyond any. That's how you can get people. That's how you can get Christians who believe in Jesus to think they got to go kill Muslims, the only other people who believe in Jesus. You appeal to their emotion. You tell them they're coming to get them. They hate their way of life. You don't present facts, because the facts don't back up such an emotional response. So you get them through emotion. And I say that's what's going on today. They're piquing our emotions, but it's to be able to move us where they want us to go. And I say they're saying terrorism, 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 excuse me, war, 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 because what they're setting us up is for peace and safety. They're going to say peace and safety, which means they're going to alleviate the war. How are they going to do that? I say, by my eschatological understanding, through things like Daniel, that this little horn we're expecting, that's a man, eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth, speaking great things, he's going to be saying, whoa, 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 wait a minute, what if, right? Hey, we've made discoveries, you know. The temple was never really on Temple Mount anyway. The temple was over here in the city of David, a few hundred yards away. You know, why don't you build it there? Hey, if you know, let's make this work. We're not a religion of terrorism. I mean, he's been saying that all along, but that's going to become, I think, the new narrative in what we all see. He's going to be showing we're not a religion of terrorism. We're a religion of love, just like Christianity. They're our brothers. The Jews are our half-brothers. The Christians are our brothers because we're both waiting for Jesus. We both have this love of Jesus, right? Why don't we all share the mount? The Pope's behind it, right? So this is what I expect coming, not World War III yet, but it's all to set up World War III is what I'm trying to point out, that they've got to have their war before they can rule the world from Jerusalem, because they need to wipe out all these Muslims. They want to wipe out especially the Persians, right? And I think the Turks too. I think they want Turkey gone, which is why Turkey's playing this role in our modern day right now as sort of a switch hitter, because ultimately, if we've made the deal with the Hashemite king, the Ottomans in history are the enemy. That's the one the Hashemites went and helped England destroy 100 years ago. You don't think people know that in their world? So I would imagine that ultimately that's the confrontation that the one side, the blue team, let's call them, the NATO team, is going to be pitted against Russia, China, and I think Turkey's going to have to be on that side, because that wipes out those Turkish Muslims that paved the way for what's been promised to the Hashemites as his new role as leader of the Muslims in the New World Order, where the Muslims don't fight against the state of Israel owning all that land. They take the part that's been portioned to them, like the Native Americans did in America. I say that's the sort of future that they're playing toward, but everybody's wanting to double-cross one another. The Hashemite king wants to really gather the Muslims together to stop that, and I think he's being paid, because the whole plan from the Albert Pike thing is a very deep deception. It's all through deception, Daniel says. Through deception, he'll destroy many. Through peace, he'll destroy many, right? Because this peace isn't a real peace. It's a false peace that turns out, you know, when they say peace and safety, Paul predicts, sudden destruction will come upon them. Now in Revelation, we have this, moment coming when it says the whole world will worship the beast because of these miracles that this false prophet does on behalf of the beast. And the thing that I think most Christians for sure don't understand, and probably most interpreters of this scripture that I've listened to don't understand, or that I think they're missing in the interpretation, is that this beast is not a person. This is not Antichrist being called the beast. The beast is the seven-headed beast. It's obviously something beyond a person. It's an organization, right? It's like a United Nations. I don't know what it's going to be, but that's the seven-headed beast, because it's been coming down through all time. It's the organization, perhaps, of the occult knowledge that are the people that want to rebuild Solomon's temple. I mean, I could see it like that. That makes sense to me. But to simply point out it's the Catholic Church or it's some president of the United States, no way. Come on, that doesn't fit Scripture. This beast was before John's time. What was before John's time? Well, Solomon's temple, right? And this false idea, this Kabbalah idea of worshiping God instead of the true religion. If that's the case. I mean, that's the religious angle. I'm just saying, why do they all want to rebuild a temple? It's quite, odd if they're materialists that they want to rebuild this temple, and that Revelation tells us in the end the whole world will worship this beast, which is a system, which is this temple system, I think. That's the beast. It's always been God's people that worshipped, Ashtoreth poles and such in their temple, and worshipped Moloch in their temple instead of God. I mean, nothing's changed. So that's what's really going on, I think. They're going to rebuild this temple, but they're going to build it to Moloch ultimately and worship Moloch, even if not by name, but in the same way. And so that's... so in the end, this false prophet appears to be a person. That appears to be this Messiah everyone's waiting for, that they're going to call Messiah. And the Messiah is going to work miracles to prove he's the Messiah. And the whole world's going to say, this must be him. And he's saying, no, we don't worship that old way anymore. We worship this, whatever this image is that they've set up in the new temple. A pyramid, probably some phallic symbol, right? I mean, if it's sticking with these Greek symbols, it's the phallic symbol that they're waiting for, if that's all not just BS. But obviously it's going to be something other than the ornamentation of the temple as traditionally understood. It's going to be some other symbol in the temple, this new temple, and the false prophet, who I think is the one that's going to be the Messiah, is going to say, we worship this, look. And he's the one that calls fire down from heaven. He's the one that makes the image speak. And it results in the whole world worshiping it. That's why it would fool even the elect, if that were possible. The false prophet is this is our Messiah, and the Messiah says, yeah, we all worship the one God, which is speaking through this thing over here. It's not about Jesus. Jesus was just a messenger. And that's why it would fool even the elect. So that's also why I think there's going to be this miracle that's going to happen on the Passover like it did before, where people are going to come out of the graves and go into Jerusalem and tell certain Jews they're going to confirm Jesus is the Messiah. And that's why these Jews are going to stand against this and say, nope, that's not him. We got the word. We saw dead people. We got the confirmation that it's Jesus. And that's why the world's going to be willing to persecute the Christians at that point. What do you mean? Here's the Messiah. He's working the miracles. Now you got to stop this crud. And I say that's why they're setting up America right now with all of this, and this sudden need to express atheism right next to Christianity. Why was that need not always present? I mean, the argument was much more vehement years ago when the church had more strength. Now that nobody believes in God anyway, it's funny how now's when they got to make their big statement to the world. I say that's all a setup, because they're, and if nothing more, it's testing the Christians of America. It's testing them everywhere, but that's the way the test will be applied in America. I mean, they're going to make fools out of Christians because they are foolish. And they don't follow their Lord, they follow Mammon, and that's going to be challenged. And they're going to, they're going to have to be, they're the ones that are going to, either take this mark to buy and sell now. This is the new way. Look, the new Messiah, the Messiah is here. The Messiah told us what to do. Here's the new image. We worship that. Of course, it's the image, obviously, of some unified religion. No distinction. I mean, that would seem to be where they're going with it all. And so only a true believer in any of the faiths could say, no, wait a minute. I'm not waiting for a unified Messiah. If you're a Christian, you're waiting. Jesus said he was going to return. So I'm waiting for him. This might be somebody, but it shows you how the Jews missed Jesus in the first place. He came working miracles, but they said, no, we're waiting for something else. And so likewise, there's going to come this person working miracles that is what they're looking for. And only the true believer will say, no, I'm waiting for something else. And so I think, as far as, putting the spin on it with religion and eschatology, that's what I'm waiting for. And so because of that, this whole UN vote, the push toward the embassy in Jerusalem, all that shows that Jerusalem's becoming the focal point, and this beast, as I say, is not the Antichrist. That's just one more confusion, right? The beast is the system that everybody's going to worship, which is this worldly mammon system, this thing that whoever sets it up in the temple, that's the beast. Whoever builds this temple, that's the beast. So as I say, who is it? It's the Zionists. It's the Jews. Because it always has been. They've always been the whore in the Bible. We're talking about the scripture now. Who's God talking about? Chinese people? When does he ever talk about them? Except to say, you shall not worship other gods. You worship me. He didn't say, go make sure nobody in the world worships other gods. He said, you shall not worship other gods. I've set you apart. You worship me, and this is how you worship me. Then all those people with their other gods, they can see me. I mean, that's the whole point of it all, right? So they're the whore that chased after other gods because they didn't want to worship their God, right? They're the beast that seeks to set up their own temple without God and claim it for God. I mean, that's the way. I mean, I don't see how you can reconcile Scripture except as something that the world has already poked plenty of holes in as being unsubstantial. So if you want to give it some substantiality, I mean, I think you have to have this sort of insight into it. And so the last thing I want to point out is that I believe that in 2017 now what we're going to see is Donald Trump, and it's already been part of their stated, I think it's the number one priority, is the ISIS. So we're going to ramp up the military push, and we're going to, make this big show of helping everybody get ISIS out of the Middle East. I think perhaps this is where the Hashemite king Jordan may play a role in this now, of showing their determination to be, the genuine expression of Islam in fighting the false expression. The rhetoric's been there, and it was there from the beginning, but the real, the mouth speaking great things hasn't come about yet. And if it's Jordan, and I expect perhaps this year Jordan will start to take a role in showing its push to get ISIS out of the Middle East, to provide a place for the refugees, to start being a leader in the solution to that, where what we expect also out of Revelation, this white horse that rises, and this rider being given a crown. We know it's a crown of honor, not one that he wins in battle. He's given a crown of honor, and then he goes conquering and to conquer. So that fits this scenario I've been watching for the good caliphate to rise up so that everybody can say peace and safety, which is why I say we still got to be some time away, guys. We're still in the ISIS is killing everybody, terrorizing the world. There's nobody saying peace and safety, right? But now you get the promise of Trump coming in to help support Israel, crush ISIS in the Middle East. So all you'll have is the odd false flags going off all over the world to keep everybody scared of this scourge, so that the good king can rise up to take his place. So anyway, that's what I'm watching for in 2017. It's all a preliminary to anything that would be World War III. I mean, you might have, well, Jesus said you'll have wars and rumors of wars. So I expect the wars and rumors, which aren't really wars, they're rumors. North Korea is going to attack the United States. I'll bet they don't. But that rumor will persist. Anyway, appreciate you being here. Merry Christmas, everyone. Hope everybody has a safe Christmas. Remember, Christmas is really about giving, not presents, but yourself. Not your money, unless you're giving money to those that really need it. Go help feed somebody, shelter somebody, empty your closet of half your clothes and go give them to people that are cold this winter. These kind of things are Christian. Take in a Syrian refugee and feed them against your government's advice. That's Christian. So anyhow, good luck, everyone. We'll talk to you next week. Good luck, everyone. We'll talk to you next week.